All right, guys, I'm back again. I may be wearing the same clothes as the other video, but I want to separate these so the videos don't get too long. So I'm going to go through construction timeline on this project of our house build. So we started, and all this back area is not the way it ultimately is going to be. This gravel was like hey, let's get in, get our CO, put some gravel down, keep the mud down. And I'm gonna do a patio project out here in the back in the future. So that's another video to come, is building a patio area here in the back. It'll turn out really nice. It'll be really cool. So check it out. All right, construction timeline to build this house. I'll run through the specs of this house a little bit just so you have an idea. We found this house plan online. It's a plan that we liked. If you go to Architectural Designs house plans, it's the 14679 RK. My wife and I looked through tons and tons of plans, and we couldn't come to agreement until we saw this one, and it was pretty close to what we kind of wanted. It checked her boxes, it checked my boxes. I like symmetrical houses, and if you look at this house from the front, it's very symmetrical. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I grew up in a symmetrical, they call them a 5-4 and a door, traditional like brick, 5 windows up top, 4 windows on the bottom, door in the middle, front door in the middle. Like, that was a house I grew up in, and actually my wife grew up in a house just like that too. That's the way all the houses were here in the 1980s, 1990s here in Georgia. They're just kind of traditional style brick front. All of them were the same, right? So I wanted a symmetrical house. We found a house plan we liked, but we wanted to make a lot of changes to it. So what we ended up doing is we hired an architect, and we sent him some pictures of this house plan we liked, and we said, we like this, and we like this layout mostly, and we like this, but we want to make this change, this change, this change, this. Turns out, we probably changed, I don't know, maybe 25% of the plan, at least 30+% of it. We made some changes, like it made the back porch much larger. That porch size is 36 by 14. And I wanted like walkout basement with retaining walls, and we changed the porch roof stuff. I also wanted the garage bigger than it was in the plan, so I made this garage. This garage is a 3-car garage. I'll walk over here and show it to you. So 3-car garage there. 1, 2, 3 doors. It's sort of a back entry, a side entry, but it's off the back of the house. And I made it 36 feet wide, and then it's 25 feet deep. So it's 25 feet inside, so that I can park. There's my Tundra and my wife's 4Runner. I can park the Tundra in the garage, and I have plenty of room to pull in, because our old house, I was able to park in the garage, but it was a tight squeeze. So now I also did 10-foot wide garage doors by 8 feet tall garage doors, so that I can pull in, because I have tow mirrors on the Tundra, and I can just pull right in, and I don't have to worry about folding in my mirrors, because at our old house, I would have to fold in my mirrors every time I went in the garage, and that was annoying, and I had to back into the garage because it was the only way to get in there. So here I can either back in or I can pull in straight. Doesn't really matter. I usually back in. I used to be a valet in college, and so that just became habit in my life to back into parking spots. I did pull straight in today. You saw that there. I just did that this morning because I was going to leave here pretty soon again and go to the office. So let's talk about construction timeline. Again, this house, I'm ADD, so just deal with it. This house is 3,860 square feet condition, is what the plan ended up being. Like I said, we changed a lot of stuff in the plan. I'll do a video on like what we changed and why we changed it and all that stuff later. So we finished the space up above the garage here. That's our kids' playroom. That's their domain. We added some, let me see if I can, you can't really see it there, but we added some dormers, some shed dormers there. There's one on each side to open up the room up there. So we finished that space. We made the back porch bigger because we wanted a big outside area. And then we did the basement and the walkout. And I also have a garage door down there in the basement for my shop, my workshop. And we'll do more videos about the workshop. So I've got a lot of work to do down there. So, construction timeline. We finally got our building permits, our grading permits. I think it was like October 2nd of 2021. We got our grading permits from the county. It took us a while. Like I said in the other video, we bought the land in April, but the county and the surveyor was being slow as Christmas. So our subdivision, we're dividing the lots up, didn't get approved until the end of July. So it was the end of July before our subdivision was finally approved and recorded with the county. So then we could actually sell the lots and everything. And then we closed. So it was the end of July. The timing actually worked out perfect because we already had that house under contract and we closed like at the beginning of August, like the first week of August. I think it was like August 4th or 3rd or something like that. So then we got the money from that and paid off. And the subdivision was approved, so we were able to then deed. So finally it was like August before we were able to deed this lot over to ourselves. The county would not let us start our building permit process until those plats were recorded and we had the deed in our name. So I couldn't start anything until August. We couldn't even start the process of getting our building permits until August. And then the way our county works is you have to go get your septic permit first. And then you can't get your building permit until your septic permit is approved, even though they're two completely different departments. Like, it would only make sense that you could go ahead and apply for your septic permit, go ahead and apply for your building permit. And this only makes sense, but we're dealing with government here, folks. And you probably can't see my shirt, but I'm not exactly a fan of big government. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. So we're dealing with government here. So we had to apply for a septic permit. That took 30 plus days to get our septic permit because the person in our county who's in charge of the environmental health office came from Fulton County, Georgia. And Fulton is where the city of Atlanta is. And Fulton is such a pain in the ass. Just the epitome of horrible big government, right? And that person came from there and came up here to our county. And that person has turned the environmental health office into what Fulton County was or is, which is excuse my language, a clusterfuck. Like, it's just terrible. It's horribly inefficient. It's top-down leadership. It's terrible. So anyways, it took 30 plus days to get our septic permit out here. And mind you, we couldn't even apply for our building permits until our septic permit was approved. You'd think that they would say, okay, apply for your septic permit and apply for your building permit, and we can't approve your building permit until your septic permit is approved. No, you can't even apply for your building permit until your septic permit is approved. Like, it would make sense to run those two things in parallel, right? Because they're two completely different departments, right? And if you don't get approved for your septic permit, you don't get approved for your building permit. But no, that's not how it works. So we finally were able to get our septic permit like at the beginning of September, and then we applied for our building permits. And you can get your grading permit first. So we got our lot grading permit on, I think it was October 2nd, because the county has to go through, you have to hire an engineer and do a house location plan. So I had a civil engineer kind of draw everything out. It cost me about $1,000 to have him do the house location plan, and he marks where the water's going to go, blah, 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 blah. So you get all those permits, you get your driveway permit, you get your grading permit, and then you can start moving dirt. So we finally got our grading permit October the 2nd, 2021. And then my grading guy, because we had been waiting on permits, he had scheduled other jobs, but he had us kind of tentatively penciled in. My grading guy is a friend of mine. He had it tentatively penciled in to start us at the beginning of October. So he started, I think it was October the 6th, I believe was the date he started out here. So he started October 6th, started moving dirt. We had 9 trees we had to take down here because this was mostly pasture here. We had a little bit of forestry mulching to do because there was some like little groves of Chinese privet, heavy bushes, but you know, we only had 9 trees to take out. So we took out 9 trees, and then we started moving dirt, and we marked everything out. I helped him mark everything out in terms of laying out the house because the surveyor kind of gave me some triangulation points where I was able to triangulate where the house goes. Plus, we were well within our building setbacks that it didn't matter, even if we were a little bit off on, what the HLP said versus where our house actually sits, because all that matters is you're within your setbacks and you're not encroaching things. So we were good there. We started grading, and my buddy who did the grading, this was like his first basement job he's ever done, and he was kind of in over his head in a sense. He's been doing grading for years. He knows how to run equipment, But he needs bigger equipment than we had in this house, and he knew that, and I knew that. But I said, hey man, I'll give you the job, because I wanted him to get this under his belt on his resume, another rung on his belt. So I gave him this job to do it, and he basically priced it the same as any other grading company would do to excavate for the basement. I think all in, I think it was like 10 grand to dig everything out. Take out all the trees, remove all the trees, dig excavate the basement out, all that stuff. I think he charged me I think it was 10 grand. So got all that done. So he finished up grading. It took him about 2 weeks to do all the grading. We had some rain events here and there, rained a few times. And he got all the grading done in a couple weeks. So that was like mid-October. And then at the end of October, I think it was right before Halloween, last week of October, they came and laid out and dug and put our footings in. And then we poured our footings on I think it was the 1st of November. We poured the footings. And then obviously right after footings, the guys came in and the wall crew came out. I hired a foundation company. They did the footings, and the wall crew came out and did the walls. So someone's calling me. I don't know who this is. So the wall crew came out, did the walls. We got the walls up by the end of November. We had some rain. We had some concrete delays. Getting concrete was crazy. Concrete got pushed a few times because there's a shortage of concrete. So we finally got our walls up towards the end of November. And then we finally got our slabs. Again, we're getting into November and December. We got rain. We got concrete shortages. We finally got our slabs poured right before Christmas. So we got our slabs in right before Christmas. And then we went ahead and dropped the lumber. We actually had to drop the lumber December 30th because prices were shooting up 30% on January 1st, 2022. They were going up 30%. So my lumber rep advised me that you should probably drop your lumber this week so you can lock in at your old price, because it's going up 30% next week. So we made that decision. I had to fight with the bank to approve our first draw on our construction loan. Actually, that was our second draw for just to cover the cost of the lumber, because it was $120,000 in lumber just by itself. That didn't even include the framer. So we had to get that approved due to circumstances. I said, well, look, guys, I'm going to pay another $30,000 next week to order the same lumber. So I approve it. So they finally did. So we were able to just go ahead and drop the lumber, because my framer wasn't scheduled to start until January the 10th. Because this was right around Christmas and New Year's, and my framer and his crew were from Mexico. Great guy. My framing crew, they were awesome. They were a recommendation of a builder friend of mine. And I asked him, I said, who would you have frame your house? And he said, hands down, this crew. I wouldn't have anyone else frame my personal house other than this crew. So I called him. He sent me, he has 2 or 3 crews. He sent me his best crew, which I love. The guys were awesome. They did a fantastic framing job on this house. Everyone complimented the framing work that they did. The guys were clean. They were fast. They had a great crew. They worked, we hung out every day. Just an awesome crew. And they were in and out of here. It took them exactly 3 weeks to frame this whole house up. A little bit of learning curve because they had never done zip system before. So I had them do zip system. So we finished up framing towards the end of January. It was right at the end of January, 1st of February, I think. And so framing was done, and then I immediately went into rough mechanicals. I couldn't get HVAC in here in time, so we had to do it a little bit out of order. Typically, you do HVAC, then plumbing, then electric. But I couldn't get HVAC in time because there was a flex duct shortage at that time, and my HVAC guy couldn't get enough flex duct. Literally, he found a guy to buy flex duct from, and the guy came and delivered all the flex duct at 10 o'clock at night to our house. It was crazy. And he had to pay the guy cash. And What a wild ride. So we didn't get our HVAC done first. So I had the plumbers come in. I had the rough plumbing crew at a local plumbing company down the road here do all of our rough plumbing, and they did our septic system. They didn't do the finish work. I have a friend of mine who's a journeyman plumber. He's not a master plumber, so he can't pull permits. So he came and did all the fixture trim out for me. Because he's a journeyman plumber, so he can't go pull permits to do all the rough plumbing and stuff. And I needed a master plumber to do the plumbing permits, because you have to have trade permits for each one. So did plumbing, and then got that done. And then the window crew, actually my window guys is the same guys I used to do my windows on all my house flips. He came. We had ordered the windows way ahead of time. We ordered them back in September. He showed up literally the last couple days the framers were here, and we were installing windows while the framers were literally still putting decking on the roof. So we went ahead and started setting windows, got all the windows in that week. It took them a couple days to set all the windows. Got all the windows in, and then the doors got delivered, and then I hung all the doors. And then right around that same time, we had ordered our garage doors in September. The second week of September, our garage doors showed up right after the framers were done. I think it was like the second week in February, our garage doors showed up. So I did another thing out of order, and I went ahead and installed the garage doors, even though we didn't have drywall. Wasn't really that big of an issue, but I wanted to get this house locked up, because then I was going to start electrical, and I had a lot of electrical stuff here, and I wanted to get this place locked up. I had a bunch of cameras on the place. The place was locked up. I was here every day. We had a next door neighbor there to keep an eye on the place. It was never an issue. We never had anybody come to the build site, but I started on electrical. I did all the electrical roughing myself under the supervision of a buddy of mine who is an electrician, and the permits were under his name. So I was kind of under his supervision, him, and actually I have another electrician buddy too. So two friends that are master electricians. They were kind of my consultants on the whole electrical work. They would come out here. So my one buddy that my permits were under, he came over here and he did all of our panels. So he wired all my panels for me and got all those roughed in, because he's way better at that than me. I can do panels. I've done them before, but his work is so much neater than mine. So I had him do the panels, but I pulled all the wire, did all the boxes, all that stuff, and I pulled all the wire back to wherever the panels were going to go. Me and my other electrician buddy did sort of the design of the system. So we did that, and then I did the permanent power myself, the meter box and all that stuff, and I just sort of FaceTime and pictures and, hey, how do I do this? And so I was sort of the grunt work, just the physical labor, which, if you know anything about construction, the rough-in crews that come to rough your house in are not licensed electricians. They are working under supervision of a licensed electrician. They're just labor, because it's literally just labor to do, or they're just apprentices or whatever. They're wiring your houses. So that's the way it is here in Georgia. It could be different in other states, but so I did all the rough-in the house, electrical wise. I'll go into another video about our electrical system. So by that time, it took me a month to do all this electrical. It took me a long time to do it all. It was a lot of wire. It turned out to be like 7,000 feet of wire in this house between Romex and low voltage wire and all that stuff. But I wired everything up, got everything in, and then right after I finished wiring, actually it was like right around the same time I was still just finishing up wiring, the HVAC crew came in and did the rough HVAC because they were finally able to get enough flex duct, and there was also a shortage of register boots. So they came in and did the flex duct and the boots, and they got all of our AC equipment roughed in. So that was, we were into March at that point. It was like middle of March, towards the end of March, that we got all that stuff in. And then as soon as HVAC guys were done, I called in Rough Mechanicals. We failed our first one, but it was just minor framing stuff. Framers came back, fixed that stuff in a day. It was a few things because of a code had just recently changed. It had to do with the rafter ties. The county now requires rafter tie, not hurricane clips, rafter ties, which is actually like a piece of wood bracing on every single rafter, whereas the code used to be every other rafter. So my framers had done every other rafter because some of the counties that they frame in locally had not adopted that yet, but our county had adopted that they require rafter ties on every rafter. So they had to come back and add rafter ties. That wasn't a big deal. We had it re-inspected, we passed. And in that process, I also had sheathing inspected too before we did windows. We did zip system sheathing. I had an engineering company do my sheathing inspection, bracing and sheathing. That was good. We passed that, no problem, first try. The only issue we had is he wanted us to add some more nails literally right here. And I had my framer do that while he was here. And he passed us. So we were good there. We passed rough-in. We were off to the races. All right, rough is passed. So then I had the insulators come out. I had a local insulation company come. They're pretty well known, and we did spray foam. Everything upstairs is spray foam. So like basically from the rim board up is spray foam. So the whole attic, all that is all open cell spray foam. And then we did the ceiling of the garage or the floor of the upstairs room. That's all spray foam. And then we framed the whole house in 2x6 exterior lumber. So we had R19 bats in the walls. And I already had all my air sealing done from my zip system because I was an air sealing Nazi and air sealed the crap out of this house and made it super, super tight. So we just needed the bat insulation for the R value. I didn't need to spray foam the walls because I didn't need an air seal. I already had an air seal for my zip system and all the other air sealing work that I had already done. So timeline wise, now we're in we're at the end of March. So insulators took 2 days to do the whole house. This was like right at the end of March. And then while the insulators were here, actually at the same time, at the beginning of March, I had the brick guys come do all the brick. Took the brick guys about a week to do all the brick on the house. We did a brick apron all the way around the house and then brick down in the basement. So the brick guys came and did all the brick. And then right after the brick guys were in, I had the siding guys start. And the siding guys were just finishing up siding. They finished up a few days after the spray foam guys were in. So basically by the first week of April, right at the 1st of April, our siding and our cornice and everything was done. And the drywall guys could start. So then I had the drywall crew come out like the very next week. Like I had just had trades stacked, coming out. And I was doing work in between. I was filling all the little stuff. I did a ton of work on this house myself. So then I had the drywall crew come out and they hung all the drywall. This was like the first week of April. And sorry, I had a bug on my leg. And then basically by the second week in April, drywall was done. Because the hanging crew took 2 days and then the finish crew came in, took them about a week to finish it out. While the finish crew was doing the drywall finishing on the inside, I had my paint crew out here doing the exterior of the house. So they were painting the outside. They caulked everything and painted the exterior of the house while the finish crew was inside. And then as soon as the finish crew was done inside, then I had my painter go inside the house and prime everything. So he sprayed and back rolled 2 coats of PVA, Sherwin-Williams PVA primer. He primed the entire house. He sprayed everything because then it was completely empty. No trades were in here. He sprayed everything. And then one thing I had him do, which is kind of weird, and most people, and he was confused why I asked him to do this, is I had him paint all of the ceilings. So we came in and we did Promar 400 flat white ceiling paint from Sherwin-Williams. And I had him spray 2 coats of paint on all, spray and back roll, 2 coats of paint on all the ceilings. So all the ceilings were done. And why I did that is because I was going to do all the electrical fixture trim out. So I could immediately start trimming out all of the electrical stuff in the house as soon as he did that. So we came in, me and my wife came in and we spent like a Saturday and we put in all the can lights. We put in all the LED trims for the can lights, and I did all the switches and I did all the receptacles in the house. It took me about, I guess it was about a week to do all of that. So I did all the receptacles and the can lights and everything, got everything in. And then as soon as I finished all that, I called in for permanent power, and I got permanent power hooked up on the house. So then we had lights in the house. So we had lights in the house, we had electricity. One of the little things that mattered the most is as soon as we got electricity, I put a little refrigerator in the garage so we would have cold drinks and cold food all the time. That was great. It was the little things that matter. So as soon as we got permanent power on, we got all that going, and then came time for trim. Well, that was a debacle in and of itself because I had originally reached out to a trim guy to quote this out. He went MIA on me, and then I called another builder buddy of mine And he gave me his trim guy. His trim guy came out here, quoted everything out, said, you know, I can start in 2 weeks. And I said, okay, great, that's good. Mind you, this whole time I was scheduling trades and reaching out to trades like months in advance to schedule them out, because trades were so busy and so backed up that I would reach out to him. I'd get him to quote it out. I'd give him the specs. And then I constantly texted him, hey, our timeline, your start date's looking like this date, this date, this date, this date. That way I was constantly reminding him that you need to put me in your schedule to start on this particular date. And I had him sort of in a tentative week, right? You're going to start this week, because you can't do it to the exact day because things happen. So anyways, all of a sudden, right before I need to start trim, I had all my trim delivered and from the lumber company, and my trim guy's like, I can't start. I'm out. I'm 2 weeks out. I can't do your trim. The same thing happened with my siding guy too. The siding guys I used was actually my second choice, but they did a fantastic job. The first guy that was going to do it did the same thing to me. He's like, I'm still 2 weeks out. I was like, well, I got to get siding. So I called the other guy and they could start a week later. So we worked it out. Crazy story. The original siding guy that I was going to use on this house, he's a siding guy for another builder friend of mine that builds like custom homes. He actually passed away in July, which was kind of sad. His wife texted me. I feel bad about that, but because he's a fantastic siding guy too. So anyways, I'm full of tangents and stories. So we got, all of a sudden I got to do trim, and I'm like, oh crap, what am I going to do? My doors were here. My trim was here. I got to get trim in, because I told my painter to prime and everything. And then I told him I'll call him back after trim's in and he can come back and paint the inside of the house. So I had to then start trim myself. So me and my dad hung all the doors in the house. Dad came over on a weekend. We hung all the interior doors, and it just took us a couple days to hang all the interior doors. A few of the doors were messed up. I had to send the lumber company back out. They had to rehang one of them because they screwed it up twice. And then the other two we hung during our trim out because they had to send us a new door frame. They did it wrong, but that's a different story for a different day. So I had to find trim people to recruit me. So I asked around and found a guy, my roofer that did my roof. I forgot to include when we did the roof. We did the roof like right after the framers were done to get it dried in. My roofer is a buddy of mine, and he said, hey, I've got a friend of mine who used to work construction and used to run a remodeling and trim crew. Now he's a licensed insurance adjuster, and he has a lot of free time, and he just does like sort of works from home. And he said he was like looking to sort of do some construction projects. So he actually came out and helped me. There was a couple days where he couldn't work because he had some office work to do, but he loved it because he used to do it and he missed it. And so he and I started the job, and then I had already started trim, and I was talking to a buddy of mine at the grocery store. I saw him at the grocery store, and I said, yeah, we started having to run trim ourselves. And he's like, hey man, I got a really good trim guy, and let me get him in touch with you. Well, the original person I would have loved to do trim in my house was my dad's cousin, Rodney. My dad's cousin, Rodney, is a fantastic trim carpenter and cabinet maker. He does $1 million homes. He is a fantastic craftsman. He did the trim in the house I grew up in. My mom was an interior designer and had a lot of high-end clients. He did all the millwork for her for years. He is a fantastic carpenter, man. He is a master carpenter. He is great. But we sort of fell out of touch with him because he had moved up to North Georgia and got a new cell phone number. No one, he's my dad's cousin, so they're not like super, super close because my dad has a lot of cousins. But anyways, turns out that the trim carpenter that my buddy knew, that I saw my buddy at the grocery store one night, was Rodney. So that was a Friday night. I called Rodney on Friday night immediately and talked to him, and he's like, oh man, we haven't talked in years. And I mean, he's so much older. He's my dad's cousin, so he's much older than me. Like Rodney's son is my age. He and I went to high school. His son and I went to high school together. So anyways, Rodney came out here on Sunday, looked at the house and said, hey, here's the deal. I got to work in the cabinet shop all week this week, building a bunch of cabinets for a job we're doing. He said, I will send his sort of top trim guy that is on his trim crew that does all the trim in the houses, Steven. He said, I'll send Steven out here for the week. If you just pay Steven directly his weekly salary for this week, he'll come out and work for you all week. So he did that. Steven showed up Monday morning, first thing Monday morning at 6 a.m. Steven was here. And so me and Steven and David, in 10 days, we did all the trim in the South. We ran all the trim. So we did all the trim, all the baseboards, all the crown, everything, got all the doors hung. All the trim was done in 10 days. So then we could have the paint crew come in. I had my painters come back. He caulked everything. And literally, I had him come in early, and we had already finished all the trim upstairs, and we were finishing out trim downstairs. So the day we were kind of finishing up downstairs, I had him start upstairs and start caulking everything, because he had already primed and done all the ceilings and stuff. So he started caulking upstairs, and it took him a couple days to caulk the whole upstairs. So by the time he finished caulking upstairs, we were done downstairs, so then he could start downstairs. So I had that done, and then as soon as we had the flooring guys come in. The flooring guys started like literally right as the painters were done. So the painter finished caulking downstairs, and then he started painting downstairs and then working his way upstairs. So I scheduled the flooring crew to start on the last day that he was finishing up trim or finishing up painting upstairs, because he was already done downstairs. So the bulk of our hardwood flooring was actually downstairs. Instead of up. We just did in the hallway upstairs. So by the time the flooring guys were done on the first floor, he was done upstairs. So then the flooring guys moved upstairs, did the upstairs, did all hardwood floors in the hallway upstairs. So then boom, flooring's done. And then as soon as he did that, the painters were done. So then I called in my carpet guy, because we carpeted the bedrooms upstairs, just the 4 bedrooms. And then I did the LVP in this room. Me and my dad did the LVP in this room. It took us, we did it in one Saturday. So we did the LVP in the room upstairs. So then the floors were done, and then I had already basically finished electrical trim out. All I had left on electrical trim out was all the nice, pretty higher end fixtures, because I left those off to the end because I didn't want any overspray to get on them or anything. Getting white overspray on a white can light trim, you're never going to see it, so it didn't really matter. Then I could trim out all the interior lights, and basically that got us to the point where we also had the cabinet guys come in. My cabinet guy came in. I left that part out. My cabinet guy came in literally right after the drywall guys were done and hung all the kitchen cabinets and started on the cabinets. It took him about a week to do all the cabinets in here. So he came in literally right as the drywall guys were done and finished up the cabinets. He was working here while the painters were painting, and I had trades stacked on top of trades, and we got the cabinets in, and then by the time the floors were done, then I had another custom cabinet guy custom build our island and our master vanity. So right as the floors were finished, I missed another part. Right after the drywall guys were done too, and while the cabinet guy was here, I'm sorry. As soon as the drywall guys were done, literally they finished on a Friday. I had the tile guys start doing tile the next Monday. That's what it was. So they started doing tile on Monday, and I had my cabinet guy for the kitchen cabinets start on Thursday of that week. So he ended up not being able to start till Friday, which actually worked out good because the tile guys took an extra day to finish the tile. So literally I'm just lapping trades on top of one another. So they finished, the tile guys finished, and then the cabinet guy did that. And then while the cabinet guy was still here, we had already started trim in the house. So he was here, and me and David were here doing trim while the cabinet guy was doing trim in there. We were just sort of working around him and doing some other things that we could do. So we got that in. The hardwood floors were in, and we did a pre-finished engineered white oak with a thick wear layer on it, so it can be resanded if you want to. So that was in. So now that next week I had the custom cabinet guy come in and bring the island. Right around that point he had finished up the island. He dropped the island in, dropped the master vanity in. So we had that, and then we had to hang up on countertops. Oh, that makes me mad. So we were so close to the finish line at that point, so close to the finish line, that what I ended up doing is I called the county and they made an exception and they allowed us to just put plywood down for the countertops to get our CO, or certificate of occupancy, because my countertops got delayed until July the 11th. We actually moved into this house on July 7th. We got our CO on July 8th. That was a fiasco I'll talk about later. Me and the building inspector, we had some issues at the end, and he was failing me for some bullshit, some stupid, petty bullshit. And I'll share that later. But we finally got our CO on the 8th, but we actually moved in on the 7th because we were supposed to get our CO on the 5th. And then he decided to cancel our appointment. And then he shows up on the 6th. And then he fails me for some bullshit. And then, anyways, we finally passed and got our CO on the 8th. But we had already moved in the night before, the day before. So we were in on the 8th. And then we had a vacation scheduled on the 9th of September. So literally we went out of town on vacation 2 days after we moved in the house. And we were gone for 2 weeks on vacation, which was actually great because I was tired. I had been working 15-hour days here every single day, 7 days a week to get this house finished and get us moved into this house. And oh, by the way, in the timeline, and while the cabinet guy was here, right after the cabinet guy was here, and the painters were here, we actually had the driveway poured. So that happened too in there. I left that part out, but the driveway got poured. That was an expensive driveway right there. Concrete prices. This driveway was $23,000. It was 60 yards of concrete, 59 yards of concrete. Yeah, it was $23,000 for that driveway. Crazy. So anyways, so there we are. We moved in. So that's how we did it. We broke ground on we got our permits on October the 2nd, broke ground on October the 6th, and we moved in on July the 7th. So it took us 9 months to build this house and get moved in. And I still had a few projects to finish when I moved in. I still hadn't screened in the porch yet. And I had a few other little things to do here and there that I finished up. So we got all that in and finished it up. So thanks. I know this was long, but that's the timeline. So if you're building your own house, like I just had trades stacked on top of trades. And then I was filling in the gaps, doing jobs, because there were some trades that couldn't get back out to fix. You know, sometimes you got to get them up to finish a little thing. So I was actually finishing the little stuff just so we could keep the project moving, keep the project moving. So that's how we did it. I hope that helps. Check out the other videos. There'll be a lot more videos about this. And I appreciate your time. Have a good one, guys. Bye.